Good evening and welcome to the City of Pasco Council meeting. The council thanks you for being part of the city government. At meetings, the council takes formal action on items, holds public hearings, and conducts other business of the city. Agenda packets are available on the City of Pasco's website at www.pasco-wa.gov/agenda. This meeting is being televised live on PSC-TV channel 191, on Spectrum Cable in Pasco and Richland, and is streamed on the city Facebook page, website, YouTube channel, and GoToWebinar. This and previous council meeting video is available on the city's website. Lastly, the public may submit comment and or question by contacting the city manager, city clerk, or by using the Ask Pasco app. And with that, can I get roll call, please?
Council members Brown,
Present.
Campos,
Present.
Milne,
Present.
Roach,
Present.
Serrano,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Maloney,
Present.
and Mayor Barajas.
Present. And with that, would you please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, everyone, for being present today. With that, we'll move on to our next item on the agenda. The consent agenda. All items under the listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the council and will be enacted by roll call vote as one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If further discussion is desired by council members or the public, the item may be removed from the consent agenda to the regular agenda and considered separately. Item A, approval of meeting minutes for January 17th and 23rd.
Mayor, may I request that this item be pulled off the consent agenda for later discussion?
The meeting minutes.
The meeting minutes, yes.
Okay. We'll pull that for discussion. Move on to item B, bills and communications.
You could put that under unfinished business later on the agenda.
We will put that into unfinished business. Bills and communications. Item C, resolution number 4305, wastewater treatment plant improvement phase 2A sole source purchase. And with that, can I get a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
There's a motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Milne. All those in favor say aye. Sorry. Roll call vote.
All right. Council member Serrano,
No.
Council member Campos,
Yes.
Council member Brown,
Yes.
Council member Milne,
Yes.
Council member Roach,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Maloney,
Yes.
and Mayor Barajas.
Yes.
6-1, it passes.
Thank you. And with that, we will go on to item number 5 on the agenda, proclamations and acknowledgements. We do in fact have a proclamation this evening proclaiming February 2023 as Black History Month. Interim City Manager, would you like to introduce?
Actually, I think Councilmember Brown might be able to do introductions for us.
Okay.
Ms. Fitzgerald.
I'll take that. I guess I'll do it in my own way. What an honor, a privilege, and a pleasure to have a representative from the Afro-American Affairs stand this month and receive this proclamation on behalf of Black History Month. Her name is none other than Mrs. Shawnee Fitzgerald, who is everything in all of our communities. She represents many different organizations. I'll allow her to tell you that. But standing for the Afro-American Chamber is huge. It's new, it's upcoming, but she'll give you the historical hit on that and how this wonderful organization is going to be a part of our communities to give it even more strength to move forward. So I present to some and others that may know her, if you would receive at the podium Mrs. Shawnee Fitzgerald to receive the Black History Month 2023 proclamation. We can.
And before we go into the whereases, I would like to just briefly give some history and some facts. Proclamations are usually issued by the mayor for the city of Pasco, provide an opportunity for the city to recognize exceptional events as this. The goal of a proclamation is to recognize and celebrate the extraordinary achievements of Pasco citizens and nonprofit organizations, to honor occasions of importance and significance, and to increase public awareness of issues to improve the well-being of people in the city. And with that, I do invite you all, there's a link on the agenda if you'd like to submit for proclamation, follow that link. And then I'll turn it over to Mr. Brown, Councilmember Brown, to start.
Yes, I will. Whereas in 1926, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History sponsored a National History Week to celebrate and promote achievements by Black Americans, and other people of African descent, which inspired schools and communities nationwide to organize local celebrations, establish history clubs, and host performances and lectures. And whereas in the decades that followed, many college campuses began recognizing Black History Month, and whereas in 1976, President Gerald Ford officially recognized Black History Month and called upon the public to seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. And whereas since 1976, during the month of February, our nation takes pause to reflect on the injustices and struggles fought and overcome by African Americans throughout our nation's history, and to pay tribute to the battles they have fought in the name of equality. And whereas in 2023, theme Black Resistance, members of Courage of Black Scholars, educators, spiritual leaders, business owners, caregivers, artists, and allies who dared to resist systemic oppression and uphold America to its promise of freedom through activism in every sector and society. And I'll now give it over to Mayor Blanche Barajas.
Thank you. Whereas the city of Pasco recognizes the history of segregation in the 1950s and the pivotal demonstrations organized by local civil rights leaders in the 1960s that led to successes in society for the Black community, and in the process have deeply enriched Pasco's history with culture, skill, and service. And now, therefore, I, Blanche Barajas, Mayor for the city of Pasco, Washington, do honorably proclaim February 2023 as Black History Month. And with that, we have this document for you. Do you have some words?
You push them.
Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor and council members. On behalf of the African American community, Women of Wisdom Tri-Cities, and the Washington African American Chamber of Commerce, we graciously accept this proclamation, and we thank you for the acknowledgement, and we thank you for your continued support of the advancement of health and wealth of the African Americans that reside in these cities. So we appreciate your time, your efforts, and the support that you have also shown Mr. Brown as he continued to be the voice and the foundation of some of the youth and some of the community leaders that we have in our city that are looking forward to better futures and better educations and better opportunities for the African Americans in Tri-Cities. And thank you so much.
Thank you for that. Thank you for coming over again to receive that. And with that, we will move on to our next item on the agenda, visitors other than agenda items. This item is provided to allow citizens the opportunity to bring items to the attention of the City Council or to express an opinion on an issue. Its purpose is not to provide a venue for debate or for the posing of questions with the expectation of an immediate response. Some questions require consideration by council over time and after a deliberative process with input from a number of different sources. Some questions are best directed to staff members who have access to specific information. Citizens' comments will normally be limited to 3 minutes each by the mayor. Those with lengthy messages are invited to summarize their comments and or submit written information for consideration by the council outside of formal meetings. And with that, again, I would invite you all to please mind the 3 minutes to wrap up your comments. So with that, is there anyone in the council chambers that wishes to make a comment? Raise your hand. Go ahead.
Do I just come up there?
Right up here, please. State your name and address for record.
You want my full address?
Yes, please. For record.
Oh, you just turned it off.
Now is it on? Hi, my name is Billy Winsveen, and I live in 5702 Glenbrook Loop in West Richland. And I am just going to hold up a picture, and I want you guys to see the face of a beautiful dog, and her name was Phoenix. And I'm here tonight to speak about Phoenix. And I sent many of you, I sent all of the council members in all 3 cities an email this afternoon. And I just want to take a moment just to read it. It's very quick. But first I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. My name obviously is Billy Winsveen. And I am a longtime volunteer with Tri-City Animal Shelter, and I am a dog walker. And some of you may know this and some of you may not, but I, along with a group of 4 other Corps volunteers, worked tirelessly once Benton Franklin Humane Society vacated the Tri-City Animal Shelter. And we worked very cooperatively with the city and provided, in my opinion, some invaluable services. I am a registered nurse, and I have been for over 30 years, and that has nothing to do with animals, but it has to do with what I did for the shelter. And I essentially provided medical care, and I did intake of stray animals. So with that said, I'm just going to just read a little bit about this concern of Phoenix. I'm writing this email and including my email correspondence, which you guys will all have if you haven't already looked at it, regarding my concerns regarding Phoenix. And this happened while the city was fully in charge, and Angela Pashon was the assistant manager, and Dan Dota was there, and Mr. I don't even know how to say Zach's last name. But anyways, in my opinion, there have been no procedural changes or accountability from the city personnel based on the facts of what has happened from the information that you will see in the email if you choose to read that tomorrow. The day of the incident that happened, I was asked by, and the incident was Phoenix's death and suffering at the hands of the shelter staff. I'm writing, I'm sorry, I'm just so nervous. Angela Pashon set a meeting for the next day after the death of Phoenix.
If you could wrap up your comments, please.
Pardon me?
If you could wrap up your comments,
Yep.
please.
And she canceled the meeting, and long story short, I never heard from her again to reschedule. I didn't hear from Zach, and I didn't hear from Ben, the current shelter manager. However, I did get contacted on multiple occasions on my personal cell phone by the lead ACO, and the messages that I received from her were very derogatory and unprofessional in
Thank
nature.
you, ma'am. Thank you.
And I just would like for people
Ma'am,
to know that
thank you,
Phoenix did
Thank
not
you.
deserve to die. And I would love you to just keep her face in your mind.
Thank you again. I would like to remind everyone to please keep mind of the 3 minutes. I will give you a time warning. We have about 20 seconds to go. And if you I'm sorry, but we have a very long agenda. If you cannot keep the 3 minutes, I will interrupt your conversation. Anyone else wishes to address? Go ahead, ma'am, in the back. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Angela Zeiler. Thank you for being here, letting us be here and talk to you tonight. My concern is with the shelter and the violation of your own municipal codes. The city of Pasco runs the shelter now, but they do the enforcement for all three cities of Kennewick, Richland, and Pasco. All three cities have a municipal code Pasco 6.05050, impounding of animals, and it says all animals shall be impounded. That's not happening at our shelter. I understand that there's new policies in place, but those policies should not override your city laws. With backup information, I have a packet for each one of you if you'd like. But back in 2015, I had an animal control officer who violated one of these codes. And I got a very strict letter from the city of Kennewick that identified that that is not correct and should never happen. All of the ordinances referenced above that contain the word shall rather than the word may. This means that the requirements are mandatory, not discretionary. It is extremely concerning to the city to learn that animal control utilizes latitude in enforcing the KMC. And of course, this was from a Kennewick city attorney. I ask you today to look at your codes and look at what animal control is now doing by violating your own very laws.
Thank you. If you have any material to submit to the council, go ahead and hand that over to clerk, Ms. Deb. And anyone else wish to address council on this or any other matter? Go ahead, ma'am.
Good evening. My name's Michelle Insera, and I'm at 74 Angus Road in Pasco. And I just wanted to let everyone know what I'm here representing. I am the president of the Friends of Tri-City Animal Shelter. And so it's the nonprofit that we set up so that we could have funds go in perpetuity with the shelter. Because in the past, the monies with the individual contractors, the money was going with that 501c3 away from the shelter. And me as a donor, I didn't appreciate that my money wasn't staying for those animals. So we set that up, and I just wanted to, I know there's a lot of concern with the animals and that the incident with the euthanization of the 5 dogs. We have a partnership that we are dealing with the shelter. So we are working with Ben and the ACOs and the staff. And if there is a concern with any dog that they feel has behavioral problems, we are then having the evaluation done, or we're having training done if it doesn't need an evaluation. And our nonprofit is paying for the evaluation and also for the training. So we just want the public to know that we have stepped in and we have asked that they give us 7 to 14 days so that we can do alternative plans for these dogs that they feel are problematic. And we want to make sure that they are properly assessed. And we currently have a very exciting part of our program. We had a dog named Milton, and the shelter called me and they said, we really need to figure out what we need to do with Milton. He's getting a little mouthy, some considered more biting, but anyway, he was stressful at the shelter. So we got him into an 8-week training program off-site. So we're very proud of our program. We have great supporters of the community, and we just wanted you to know that we are there, and the community, we want them to know we're there to help those dogs. And hopefully we'll never go through that incident again. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
probably don't need this because I talk very loud. My name is Mary Maddox. I'm the founder of Service Peace Warriors, business owner of Maddox Dog Training Academy. Milton just came to me a day or two ago, not aggressive bone in his body. I didn't know what was going on at the shelter. I found out just very recently on the 5 dogs that were put down. Really wish I'd had a chance to go in there and evaluate these dogs. I've met 3 aggressive dogs in my entire life of 45 years of training dogs. 2 were neurological, and 1 was just aggressive. Genetics come into play. These dogs really do need a chance. I would like everybody here to meet Violet. I got her from Mikey's Chance. Her mother was in a kill shelter. She's a Newfie cross. This girl has saved her veteran's life, I can't tell you how many times. Thank you to Andrea from Mikey's Chance for pulling the mother. Taking care of the babies and letting me come in and take these pups. I took a few of them, and they're all service dogs for veterans that fought for our freedom. They suffer from PTSD. I'm here as Maddox Dog Training Academy too. I have Milton in my hands right now, and he is just a sweet, sweet boy. I have dogs that I've pulled from the shelter here in Pasco, big Buchon dogs, all kinds. They're out there as service dogs with veterans right now. I wish I had a chance to evaluate them before it had happened. I know what's done is done. Of course, I'm a dog lover. Sorry. I fight for the veterans and I fight for the dogs, and I go all the way with it. I just want to thank everybody that's here for these dogs, and that something needs to change. Backyard breeders, all that. I know we can't control a lot of that, but maybe we can control maybe giving these guys a little bit of a rest and break and see if we can help these dogs before euthanization.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to address council? Second call for anyone?
My name is Mary Mahoney. I live at 5017 West Pearl in Pasco, in an unincorporated area. I want to read something to you all. Today at noon, 2/6/23, the Hawaii County Council introduced Bill 22, creating a new animal control and protection agency. This just came to me a couple days ago. I was not going to speak tonight. Tonight, they're taking public comments, and on February 7th, Bill 22 will be introduced to the Governmental Operations and External Affairs Committee at the Hilo County Chambers. The sole purpose of the legislation is to move the function of animal control from, in this case, the police department, and create an independent animal control and protection agency that will report directly to the director of that county. Functions will adhere to the revised statute, and legislation is being introduced by Council Chair Heather Kimball and Council Member Cindy Evans, District 1, District 9, respectively. I just kind of got this together. The sole purpose is to protect the animals. And this is something that we can look into as a community. I think our animal control system is dismal and failing. I would also like to bring up the 2023 Washington State legislative session did convene on Monday, January 9th, and Pasco, the city Pasco, hired Gordon Thomas, Honeywell Governmental Affairs, a lobbyist. They've been contacted to assist in promoting the council's legislative priorities to the Washington State Legislature. That includes the City of Pasco supports pet adoption Public Record Act
Ma'am, if you
exemption.
could wrap up your comments.
Yeah, real quick. Pasco supports legislation that would create an exemption from the Public Records Act on disclosure of public or pet adoption information. This contradicts transparency. As Tri-City Animal Control has
Thank you,
been currently
ma'am.
operated,
Thank
I
you.
live in an unincorporated area
Ma'am.
and I do not want to live under
Thank you.
animal control jurisdiction. I say that
Ms. Mahoney, thank you.
further harassment and retaliation.
Thank you again.
On 19, I addressed the city council and talked personally to Lee Kerr about the
Thank you again.
Washington State University contract with animal control and the potentially dangerous animal ordinance that does not comply with the Constitution.
Thank you for your comments. I would like to ask you to please take a seat now. Thank you again.
Need a change, look into Bill 22 with Hawaii.
Thank you again. Anyone else in chambers that would like to address the chamber? We have her first, and then you can go ahead.
Okay, you all know me. I'm David's wife, Nicole Milne. I have a big heart for dogs. We have 9 dogs at our house right now. A lot of them are fosters because the shelter isn't doing their job. I have written all of you guys. I'm tired of it. I'm on all the missing pet pages. I'm all over Facebook. I'm getting to know a lot of these people because we're picking up the slack. And it's wrong. And when you guys tell them, oh, just let the dog loose again, really? So they can get hit by a car? So they can get taken to a dog fighter? I mean, really? You guys just got how many millions of dollars for the animal shelter? And you guys are doing crappier than you did before with less money. So I am not a public speaker. I am shaken to death right now because it's not my thing, but it is my heart and my passion. And we shouldn't be having 3 fosters at our house and all the headache it causes, but I'm not going to have them running the streets. So all we're asking, unless you're going to give me the millions of dollars to build my own shelter so I make sure all these dogs have a place to go, then do your job. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Carl Holder, 402 West Lewis. In February of 2022, I approached the council to tell you my intent to bring a retail cannabis store to downtown Pasco. Since then, there's been a year of discussion with untold thousands of pages and thousands of discussions. On January the 17th, there was a vote on motion A to approve use of retail cannabis in zones in Pasco, and that motion passed. Thank you for removing the motion from the minutes, and I look forward to further discussion on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi there, Julie Webb. I live in Richland. I wasn't going to speak, but I feel our people that actually are in the shelter deserve a voice too. I don't think the public realizes the outbuilding. They're now holding the dogs for 7 days because there's so much giardia, there's so much illness going around. So when the public sees these empty kennels inside, they say, those are kennels, they're open. But what they don't see is we're segregating, or keeping them separate because the adoptable animals need to stay healthy. And so run to, all healthy, great, they get the animals adopted. After 7 days, they move the dogs inside, they get altered, they get their shots, and and then they move in, then the next wave of dogs come into the outbuilding, but we don't have a lot of kennels out there. There's 4 dogs right now, Diva, Chief, who is an ACO case. We have Maze, and this other dog, Tony. They are out there right now as well because we want them to have the double wide. We want them to have a little more freedom to be able to move. If they're inside, that's where the kennel stress is. They're not presentable to the dogs. Baxter was one that was put down. We had tried everything with him on where to put him so that he would be presentable. He didn't need a kennel that was covered. The public doesn't realize that the kennels past Baxter were covered. Those needed to be for dogs that were going to escape their kennels. You couldn't go past Baxter to show those 4 dogs to the public that were more adoptable. So I understand they're mad about that, but I do want the public to know this $2 million, it's for more staff. Our intake is giving more meds, and we have a vet that comes in every Tuesday and takes care of the animals. They get to see every single animal and make sure they're healthy. The staff has sections now for URI cats. They have a section for just came in, and that's separate. They have a ringworm. There's signs all over that the public can come in and walk through with the staff. No one has taken them up on that. I have said, you guys, most of you walked through with me as well a couple years ago. The door is open. Ben is open. Yes, Ben worked for Bruce Young, but if you ask him when, he didn't work for him during the WSU. He left before that. So that's the stuff that the public, they hear one thing and then they just steamroll these poor people. They are the voices of the animals as well. I had to sit with all those animals. I get it. I laid my body over them, didn't want it to happen, but they can't go by themselves. Someone has to be
I'll
there.
invite you to wrap up your comments.
Yeah, are we done? Okay.
You have
please
15 seconds.
Please come through. I'm there Monday through Friday. I do orientation. The staff, we wanted those dogs to be remembered. It used to be hush hush. If a dog was put down, you couldn't talk about it. But these dogs deserve to be remembered. So please, I will meet with any of you guys and do a tour.
Anyone else? Right in the back, and then you, right here. If you can press the button. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Andrea, and I live on 1114 West 10th Avenue in Kennewick. And I just came here to say that we definitely as a community feel that in general, everything going to Pasco, all these animals being in one city, I can understand that the shelter can be overwhelmed. We just don't appreciate animals being put down. That was, for 10 years, a belief of mine that this was a no-kill shelter. And it's a betrayal of trust to feel that it's been hush-hush. Not okay, and should not be an option. There are other avenues to save these animals. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you for adopting, for fostering, for training, and putting the time we can into these animals because they deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
My name is Joseph Galbraith. I live at 368 Driftwood Court. I must confess that I'm not premeditated speaking today either, but for the past few years, I have seen personally the efforts that these people here today have gone to help animals, and I'm not exactly well informed on the situation, at least to the extent I would hope to be speaking here today, but it is my understanding that the budget for the shelter previously increased while the spending had decreased, which does not make sense to me. I would also like a proper explanation as to why a shelter that was previously no-kill turned to-kill. I have never seen before a dog that could not be helped and had to absolutely be put down due to aggression. I understand these people have more experience with that than I do. But having said that, I still think there's more to this story than most people are aware of. That is all.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead. You in the white.
My name's Mona Dury. I'm a longtime resident of Richland, 94 Cullum. And I just am here tonight because I feel that the shelter is not doing all cities justice as far as animal control goes. I know myself have called numerous times found a dog, whatever, no help whatsoever. Somebody said, you know, your budget has increased, your staff has increased. Well, what is the staff doing? Is animal control coming out, patrolling, helping? You know, yeah, maybe you can't take it in, but can you come out and scan it? There is just, I don't feel as a Richland resident that the needs are being met for our city. And to just tell the person that's calling, well, you're gonna have to just let it go, like somebody else said, that has been told to me. And that's not an acceptable answer when you're speaking with somebody from animal control. What is animal control about? Not letting them go, roam free and get hit. I think there needs to be more transparency, and I just want to make sure that those in charge understand that we're not going to just sit by and let things go. We're going to keep an eye on things, and you need to step up and do what's right for all cities. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
For what's right for all cities and what's right for the animals.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else wish to speak? And I understand there's 2 individuals online. Are they waiting?
We have Mr. Leo Perales online, and that's all we have for
Okay.
in that.
Mr. Perales, is there a comment you'd like to add? Mr. Perales, is there a comment you would like to add?
Who else was on that list?
Is he muted?
Not on our end. Oh, maybe.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay, I appreciate it. My apologies, I couldn't be there in person. Still fighting a cold, and I didn't want to stand there talking and coughing, so I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. I'll just be brief because I did see you guys have a very long agenda. I sent you guys an email earlier this morning. I hope you've been able to read that. We all have been pretty perturbed about what's been going on at the Tri-City Animal Shelter, and we all understand that the funding has gone up. We saw groundbreaking for a new animal shelter, but what we're all afraid of is we're throwing money at this issue, and we're not going to see a change in culture. We're going to have a brand new facility, and it's all going to be the same problems. So I sent you an email giving you guys recommendations, and this is based not off. These aren't my opinions. These are individuals. I've talked to many individuals. I've talked to Michelle and Sarah with the Friends of the Tri-City Animal Shelter. She did brief me that there was a policy change, but the thing is, we need verifiable evidence of this stuff actually happening. So my recommendations to you all were that we need to implement a Tri-City Tri-City Animal Shelter Oversight Board. I did attach in a white paper about what that oversight board would do and its powers. I think we need to have better training, and it needs to be more expeditious. You know, we all know that the animal shelter is hit hard with a lot of animals, and so we need to get more people in there, and we shouldn't be bogged down by long-winded training. I also think we need to start investigating families who adopt animals and then don't take care of them and abuse them. I've seen a lot of testimonials on Facebook, and people have reached out to me to let me know that they've had problems with Tri-City Animal Shelter and animal control, with them not listening to people out there that say, hey, I have a lost dog, and then they tell them let it go. I think we need to have investigations into that stuff, and then also red flag people who aren't taking care of pets they're adopting. I think we need to have public access to all the policies and procedures. We can put that online at the Tri-City Animal Shelter website. I think more transparency, because that's the issue right now. There's a severe loss of trust, and there's just a lack of transparency. And I think we should be able to define what a no-kill shelter is in the community. If we define a no-kill shelter as we don't want to see any animals being euthanized, then that's what we can do. We don't have to go by the definition that has been given to the Tri-City Herald or what was said from the Tri-City Animal Shelter. We can define that. So I think we just need to have more public input in cooperation with the city so that we can move beyond this, because I personally believe if Pasco was a person, because we always talk about Pasco proud, Pasco would not be proud of this. But since we are pretty much doing this for all Tri-Cities, we need to do right by these animals and for all of Tri-Cities. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment? Go ahead, sir.
Evening, members of the council. Appreciate the time. As the author of the paper, I just felt I would speak to that real quickly.
Can you state your name and address for the record?
Brian Marino, I'm a resident here at Pasco. For context for those I haven't met, I spent 6 years serving on the Commission on Hispanic Affairs. I currently serve on the Washington Hospitality Board, the Tri-City Regional Chamber of Commerce, the Leadership Board, a bunch of advisories with CBC and WSU. And that is the context behind the white paper, is through those associations, applying the practices that are actually found here in the city of Pasco. When Chief Roski and I have a conversation about their practices and policies, they're not opinions. They're based on research. They're based on best practices. They're based on organizations from around the country and the globe in their case. I feel that an advisory board offers the support to staff and the thought leadership they need and the technical assistance to set up those policies, especially as some of those have been described today as being in conflict with state statute and municipal code. Putting constructive voices in the room to vet these practices and really have the animal lens of the community stakeholders in mind would alleviate a lot of these tensions. So I'm glad everybody has a copy of the paper. I'm happy to follow up off time and volunteer to help with any sort of technical assistance and what it would take to set that up. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a comment? Last opportunity.
I'm Jerry Randall, and I live at 35109 South Finley Road in Finley. About 30 or 40 years ago, I worked at that animal shelter, and I've kind of kept track of it over the years, and it has always been a problem where they put more dogs down than they adopt out. It's gotten better, certainly it's gotten better, but I was in there a week or so ago and picked up a dog to take out so Hart could place it, because it had been there a week and they were not making good noises about its future. So I don't think anything much has changed, and I hope that this board will make those changes that will bring about healthy lives for the animals as much as possible, and, you know, people to care for them. Thank you.
Last comment. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. I would like to add, Julie, thank you. I did take that tour with you a couple years ago. Very different situation. I was there maybe 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. And it was a very different situation to that first time that I went. It was definitely cleaner. It was definitely more organized. And there is a progress of change happening. I did go back, and I mentioned this, I did adopt from that visit. I did adopt, if you recall, Ernest. Yes. He is now named Gus. And he's at home. If you want to do a background check on me, if you want to do whatever you need to do, go ahead, do that. But for the community, I would just like to invite you all. There is a need for volunteers. There's a need for people that are interested in helping out the staff. They are short-staffed. I would invite the community with good sense to help, to want to help, to come and help the staff. That's all I have to add. Thank you again. With that, we will move on to our next item on the agenda, reports from committees and or officers. Do any of our council members wish to report on any meeting that they attended? Councilmember Campos and then Councilwoman Roach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was able to meet with the Housing Owners Authority Association, Homeowners Association. There we go. It's been a long day at Tierra Vida last Thursday, and it was a very productive meeting. Was able to get out and answer some questions that some of the homeowners had. Was able to provide them some insight on what our roles and responsibilities as council are, and just was able to get out there and meet some really cool people and feel how much and how
Councilman
proud they are.
Campos, can I stop your roll just shortly? We can allow some time for those that wish to empty the chambers to have that time.
Did we want to take a break, Madam Mayor?
Let's take a 5-minute break. All right, thank you again, everyone, for participating. And Councilman Campos, it was your turn to speak, sir.
I'll start right back from the top.
Yes, thank you.
You got the name right.
Yes, yeah, I'll get the name right. It's the Homeowners Association of Tierra Vida that I met with last Thursday, and we just had a really engaging conversation. I was able to answer some questions and just really get a sense of pride of ownership for all the folks that turned out. And they've got my contact number, and I explained how I can be of service to them, and just kind of gave a brief overview on what's going on in the city, and that was it. Short and sweet.
Thank you. Councilwoman Roach, you had something to share?
Thank you for remembering, Mayor. I did attend the Visit Tri-Cities January 25th meeting. We talked about a lot of things, but some of the big stuff, their senior vice president, Kim Shugart, who had been there for years and years, she retired as planned. And so big deal, and but that was a planned retirement, and so they've kind of had a little bit of a reorganization. So if you know Hector Cruz, who has been really committed to their sports and recreational promotion, he has taken that VP position, and they've made a couple new hires. So kind of a little bit of a 50% of a fresh team. So that's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Kevin Lewis, the new CEO, he has a background of outdoor recreation coming from the Mount Zion area of Utah. So hoping that coupling of Hector Cruz and our local regional area and sports promotion is going to be really big in this next term. And one of the cool things that came about was that in that report that I thought would be, for those of you who care, there is a USA BMX Gold Cup for the Northwest planned here in Richland in the fall of 2023. So I believe it's slotted for October, and anticipate about 2,500 visitors to the community for that event. And the other update, just for council awareness, is that I am co-coaching Parks and Rec boys basketball every Tuesday and Thursday. If you need me to serve on a committee on those evenings, I will not be able to. But it's been really great to actually work with Parks and Rec on that, and been enjoying that, but also probably one of the reasons why I'm losing my voice, because on Saturday mornings I'm like, get on defense. But anyhow, that's what I've been up to.
All right, Coach. Anyone else? Councilman Milne?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, on the 27th of last month, I did attend the Colima Pasco meeting, joint meeting, and we got some more new board members. It was a really good meeting, well attended. And as far as my report, with the multi-club with Sunrise Rotary, the multi-club, the money is now in Colima to do the rehabilitation equipment, and so we're still waiting on to see when they spend it all so I can do a report, but things are moving good as far as cooperation of Pasco helping out Colima and vice versa. And I know we talked about also getting together with the members that didn't make it the first time because of the earthquake, and try to meet back up and try to facilitate a better understanding and relationship between the two cities. So it was a good meeting.
Thank you. Councilman Brown?
Yes, just real quick, no meetings, mine's is coming up this week, but I was cordially invited to a gala on Saturday for the Children's Development Center, and I'm going to ask Councilwoman Roach to tag in just a second, but I'm sharing it because Pasco, to me, is just a trend-setting city. We all disagree to agree, but there's something so vibrant about this city that's just awesome. And I think we do great work collaboratively in the city, and we're all connected to different things that each other is doing, even sitting on the dais. And being cordially invited to this gala that our Councilwoman Zara Roach is the executive director of was amazing. There was great collaboration in the room. It was everyone from every city, every walk of life. I think that was really there with a heart for our children. Just to see that collaboration in the room and see that we're attached here on this dais representing Pasco was also awesome for me to see. So we're attached to we have some pretty awesome tentacles reaching out, I think, from Pasco. So I'm going to speak very proudly of my city because I love my city and I think we're doing great things. And people pay attention to us and they follow us. So with that, I'm going to now turn it over and ask Councilwoman Roach to give us more in-depth information about what I think is a great organization that we all should tap into.
Was not expecting that. Thanks, Councilmember Brown. We got to celebrate through fundraising for a local nonprofit. The nonprofit that I work for is Children's Developmental Center, and it's been around for 46 years. We serve kids in Pasco, Kennewick, Findlay, Patterson, used to in Richland as well, but we directly serve kids that are going to grow up and go to the Pasco School District, Kennewick School District, Findlay School District. And we had a lot of people, business owners across the region in the room to celebrate good food, local food, and local wines. So I don't know. I think that's okay. I've just gave you my elevator pitch. There it is.
I slipped my mind, but I want to take the time to thank Pasco Police Department for also attending Chair Vita's HOA meeting with me. I think it was very beneficial for them to make a presence known. I think a lot of the residents were actually pretty excited to see Captain Paramore all looking all nice and sharp, and they had some questions for him. And so it was just nice engagement. And I think really drives the point home is that you guys are out in the community as part of the community, not as part of the police force. So just very helpful, and thanks again, Chief.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments. Any further comment? Seeing none or hearing none, we will move on with the agenda. Item 8, hearings and council action on ordinances and resolutions relating thereto. Item A, public hearing for Mendoza right-of-way vacation. Director White.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. This proposed vacation involves right-of-way on Fifth Avenue, located on the east side of Fifth Avenue between Ainsworth and A Street. For some reason, these two properties involved in the vacation were not included in a vacation process that occurred about 25 years ago for Fifth Avenue here in this location. Staff would ask council to continue the public hearing as explained in the agenda report, and when this comes back to council, the recommendation will be to concur with the ordinance that we anticipate will request vacation of this portion of Fifth.
All right, so do we have any questions or comments from council? Councilman Serrano.
Yeah, Mr. White, I think I read this in both this and the subsequent item. It indicates that the notice requirements were not timely. Is there a specific reason that those were left out? Go ahead.
There's a health reason, yes. We had two individuals that were absent on the day that they were supposed to go to the Herald and be placed in the mail.
Okay, I definitely appreciate that context. Do we anticipate any opposition on this issue?
No.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. So we won't actually have a hearing. This is a motion to continue the hearing, correct?
But we do need to open the hearing and then move to continue it.
Okay.
Mayor, may I just ask one technical question of Director White? Just reading through the brief, it says that Mr. Mendoza initiated the vacation of the portion of right-of-way in front of their property, and city initiated the vacation in front of Rafael Valdovino's property. And just further in the discussion, it's only referring to the city's initiation of the vacation, but just trying to understand that we're looking for that entire portion, what the Mendoza's requested as well as the city. Is that accurate?
Yes, and again, for unknown reasons, both of these properties were not included in the vacation that occurred 25 years ago. Why, I have no idea. So the neighboring owner in the green, with the frontage in the green outline on the screen, was requested by the city to also sign the vacation application, and he was glad to do so.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions or comments from council? And with that, this hearing is open. Do we have any questions or comments from anyone in chambers regarding this issue? Second call for anyone in chambers regarding this issue. Third and final call for any question or comment. Hearing none.
We don't want to close the hearing.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
And Mayor Barajas, I move to continue the public hearing to the regular council meeting of February 21st, 2023 to consider vacating right-of-ways for South 5th Avenue.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you for that. And we go on to item B, public hearing for Jubilee Foundation right-of-way vacation. And again, Director White.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. This vacation request involves a series of rights-of-way, both for public streets and alleys that are located north of A Street and east of Heritage Boulevard. Obviously, it's involves more and it's more complicated than the previous vacation request considered by council. And there is at the same time a preliminary plat application going on with this parcel. However, it suffers the same deficit in public notice that the previous vacation did. And staff would request council's consideration of the motion to continue this public hearing as well. In the meantime, the pre-plat, the preliminary plat application is being processed, and that, although that's a different subject, it is indirectly related to this vacation request.
Okay. With that, do we have any questions or comments from council? Mayor Pro Tem Maloney.
Thank you, Mayor Barajas. Director White, you said a preliminary plat has been submitted and is being separately moving through the system. Do we expect any of the conversation and review of that preliminary plat to be timely with our expected public hearing and continuation on the February 21st, or is one going to follow the other? Can you help me understand how these two will interact?
They will miss each other in the decision process. So if the council continues this to the 21st and makes a decision on the vacation, that will precede both the hearing examiner consideration at a public hearing and his decision on the preliminary plat.
Given that, you obviously brought up the preliminary plat for good reason. Do you expect that at the February 21st meeting, we're looking to get the preliminary plat through first before we vacate the public right-of-way, or do we need to vacate this before the hearing examiner's hearing? Because that'll make most sense to move the process forward. I'm just having trouble understanding exactly how these are going to interact, Director White, and so I'm hoping you can help flesh that out for me.
Well, the vacation request doesn't necessarily preclude the consideration of the preliminary plat. There are subdivision regulations that will apply to the preliminary plat. However, they're independent of this vacation request. We could still end up with a perfectly functioning street system through the plat process. I think, does that help, Councilman Maloney? I think that answers your question.
I think so. I just want to make sure that if we can sync these up, if it makes sense for them to be synchronized, so that everyone, both the applicant and the city's needs, are aligned by the time we start voting on things. That'd be in my best interest. Of course, if there's a process to flow one to the other, that's the only thing I was asking about, Director White, is just timing.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from council? Hearing none, this public hearing is now open. Do we have any questions or comments from anyone in chambers?
Good evening, Council. I'm Stephen Bauman, B4 Development Consultings, and I'm here representing the owner, the Jubilee Foundation, and the Brochi family. Excited about this project. We've been putting a lot of effort into it. We've got architects and engineers working on it, and excited about the opportunity here, and look forward to this being addressed on the 21st. So thank you. If you had any other specific questions about that, I could help with that if that's helpful.
Does anybody have questions for Mr. Bauman?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment from chambers? Second call. Third and final call. Hearing none, closing this hearing, and can I get a motion?
So I move to continue the public hearing to the regular council meeting of February 21st, 2023.
Point of order. Madam Mayor, I'm sorry, could you go back and you actually closed the hearing, so we need to make sure it stays open so that he can continue it. Sorry, I should have jumped in there.
Can you?
I think you just need to rescind the fact that you closed the hearing.
Okay. This hearing is
Remains open. Yep, there we go. Perfect. Thank you.
Can I get a motion?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Ferguson, and thank you, Mayor Barajas, for clarifying that. I move to continue the public hearing to the regular council meeting of February 21st, 2023, to consider a request to vacate rights-of-way in the Washington addition to Pasco in the vicinity of East A Street and East Helena Street.
There's a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Campos. Can I get all those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And it passes unanimously. And with that, this hearing is closed.
The hearing is continued until
Continued. Correct. I take that back. This hearing is continued until February 21st. With that, we go on to item C, public hearing for Burnham Wastewater Treatment Agreement Process Water Use Facility Pre-Treatment Improvement Phase 3 project. Can you make that any longer next time? Director Worley, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Council may recall that a couple weeks ago, staff presented the wastewater treatment agreement with Burnham for the Phase 3 portion of the process water reuse facility. And you'll hear me refer to that wastewater treatment agreement as the WTA from now on, just to make it simpler and go faster. Per the RCW 70A140, which is the Water Quality Joint Development Act, this public hearing is required as an opportunity for the public to weigh in on whether this agreement, service agreement, is beneficial for the city. A lot of work went into this agreement, and it represents a lot of effort on a lot of people's parts, not only for the agreement itself, but also for the project as it continues to move forward. The agreement is for the design, construction, operation, maintenance, financing, and ownership of the Phase 3 project, which is the industrial wastewater treatment plant for the process water reuse facility. Tonight we'll take public comments from anybody who is present or online. We do have representatives from Burnham SEV. Walker Dimmig is here this evening to join if there's any questions. We also have a processor and other representatives online to help provide clarification if needed for anybody who might have comments or questions. And then after all comments are received related to this public hearing, once the hearing is closed, a finding of facts will be developed, and then the final agreement is currently scheduled for approval on February 23rd. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions or comments for Director Worley? Mayor Pro Tem Maloney, one question. A question or comment?
Thank you, Mayor Barajas. Maybe I missed some of what you said, Director Worley. Approximately when did you expect the draft agreement with the processors to be brought before council? I know you say soon, and so I don't want to pin you to a date if there's still a lot of uncertainty there.
The processor agreements, WTAs, are scheduled for next week's workshop.
Okay. In general, obviously this is an absolutely massive investment in, by this council and this community in a facility here, right? Rarely do we, as a council, have something that's $135 million for one particular project in front of us. Have you had any concerns and others that have been, anything that's been brought forward that has been problematic that you are concerned about that you should bring to our attention at this time?
You bet. There has been a lot of coordination amongst all the parties involved, Burnham, consultants, city staff, all of the processors, and we have looked at multiple different options for ways to reduce the cost of this project. And there are options that have been identified, and I think currently the cost is down to about 122. With that, the staff continues to pursue additional grants and loan opportunities as well. We recently received a grant from the Community Economic Revitalization Board last week or the week before for $5 million. We've got a current request into the state legislature. And then we just got notification today of some additional funding opportunities that may come our way from the federal side of things. So we will continue to work every opportunity to help bring the cost of this project down to all of our processors.
Great, I appreciate that. I know when the first wastewater treatment plant, when it was first proposed and developed, that was a massive lift for our community, and it's paid significant dividends. So I appreciate that we're looking forward to the future and in a way that's, I think, a lot greener than we've been able to do in the past. So appreciate all that. Okay, thank you for that additional context.
Do we have any questions? Any further questions or clarification? Online, is there any additional information you wish to add? No.
Just want to open the public hearing.
We'll open the public hearing. And with that, we will open this public hearing. I would invite anyone from the chambers to step up and if you have any questions or comments. Second call for anyone in chambers to make a comment.
Madam Mayor and members of Pasco City Council, my name is Carl Dye. I'm the CEO of Tridec, and obviously we're in Kennewick. But I'm very happy to be here tonight. It's my first chance to address City Pasco City Council at a public hearing. And I'm here to speak in favor of this agreement or this next step with Burnham for the City of Pasco. It is a very heavy lift. I still consider myself new. I've been here 3 years now, but I've learned through the process that the original, some of the original funding for the original Pasco water reuse facility that we're speaking of came through some grants that flowed through Tridec, potentially from Department of Energy. So, we've got a long-standing history in working with the city on this specific facility. And it's been very key to so many of the processors that are here because they could actually be a part of this joint user facility instead of having to treat the waste on-site to the degree that they could put it in the municipal sanitary sewer system. So this has been a great advantage for job creation for the city of Pasco in the past. I think this next phase and actually producing renewable natural gas is a huge opportunity for the city of Pasco. We haven't been involved in the discussion with the users or the actual customers. If there's something that we can do to help out with that, we'd stand ready to do so. We want to be as collaborative and helpful as appropriate. I think, Steve and the staff have been doing a great job as far as I know, but if there's something else we can do to help, we're always available for that. I also wanted to bring up to the point on funding, if there's something that we can do with Department of Energy. Department of Energy through the Inflation Reduction Act has programs that could potentially be used. I don't know, but we could take a look at it. I think the other thing is in Department of Energy, they have the Loan Program Office that funds projects specifically that remove carbon from the atmosphere and helps the country meet their carbon reduction goals. And I think there could be potentials there, not understanding what the bonds or how this could be financed are at, but that can be an opportunity. And again, something that we can help with. We'd stand ready to do so and partner with the city as possible. I think the other thing that as we talk to multiple companies that are interested in the Tri-Cities, Pasco being a key part of that we have that's unique to Washington that I think we could take a look at over time, depending upon what it is whether we agree with it or not, the state of Washington has the Climate Commitment Act. And so this month, they'll start to sell off carbon credits and generate revenue from there. Department of Ecology is still working on how do they direct those funds into programs that reduce carbon, but I think this would be a prime candidate to potentially get some of those state funds. And, you know, ultimately, if they're going to do it, we need to work together as a community, as an entire community, to make sure that some of those dollars come locally to support projects like this. So I just wanted to speak in favor of that and offer, you know, not realizing where it's going to go or if the time frame would work out for funding this facility. But I do think it's an opportunity because as we talk to companies, the ability to utilize some of those dollars in the future is a big opportunity for companies. And we hear many, many times from food companies that the market is starting to drive these types of projects where we remove greenhouse gases, where we remove carbon from, you know, the operations industrially, because their customers are requiring it. You know, McDonald's and other consumer goods are saying, I think in the future, and I'm not trying to overstate this by any means, but I think we'll start to see even carbon and greenhouse reduction, you know, packaging that says how much carbon or greenhouse gases did this product take to get to market. And so I think projects like the PWRF Phase 3 Burnham project that we're talking about gives Pasco the unique opportunity to continue to lead and be an innovator in food processors. You know, just like Pasco is the most dynamic and fastest growing city possible, I think this project is a great opportunity for the city of Pasco to continue that leadership. And so on behalf of TRIDEC, all of our board and our members, we just wanted to offer support for this project and offer to help any way that we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Do we have any other questions or comments from chambers? You turned it off.
Other way. Ours turned green when they're on. Good evening, Madam Mayor. I'm Stephen McFadden. I'm the Director of Economic Development for the Port of Pasco. I'm also a Pasco resident at 4311 Hilltop Drive. Been here for a little over 2 years. I'm quite thrilled at how things go in this community. And I echo the things, Councilmember Brown, that you've had to say. For 30 years, the Port of Pasco has been successful in the recruitment and attraction of food processing industry to Pasco due to its rock-solid relationship with the city of Pasco and the ability to direct our food processors to the processed water reuse facility. Our Pasco Processing Center and our Foster Wells Business Park are currently 100% sold out. They would not be without the processed water reuse facility. In January of 2022, Darigold purchased 150 acres of our new Ryman Industrial Center located on Railroad Avenue. This single transaction will bring the single largest food processing project in the history of the Port of Pasco to the Pasco region in Franklin County. And again, that project would not locate here if it didn't have access to the processed water reuse facility. We had a very aggressive site selection process that took more than a year, while Darigold considered a total of 43 locations besides Pasco in 3 different states. There were 2 key things that helped us land that project. Not the economic developer, but access to high volume natural gas and access to the processed water reuse facility to handle approximately 1.5 million gallons a day of processed water. That facility is key to our ability to recruit additional food processors in the future. And as Steve Orley will tell you, he asked me about a year ago to stop bringing high volume water users to Pasco until the city's sanitary sewer system and the processed water reuse facility could be improved and expanded and modernized, and we've honored that. The negative side of that, we've recently, over the last, say, 9 months, turned 3 food processing companies away who have come to us looking to site on Port of Pasco ground, but we don't have the capacities on the utility side to serve them. And this processed water reuse facility and any future expansion of that facility will continue to be critical to being able to continue to honor the ag industry by attracting food processing to this region. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments from chambers? Second call for comment from chambers. Third and final call for comment from chambers. Hearing no more comment, this hearing is now closed. Correct. Before I close that, we do have people online. Is there any comment you wish to add?
Yeah, I would. This is Doug Pettinger with Dairy Gold. I'm the Senior Director of Environmental Compliance. We are the new kid on the block. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Quickly, my background, I've been in the environmental field for about 42 years and worked with multiple industrial sectors, mining, manufacturing, aerospace, nuclear power, and I've spent about 18 years in the food industry, 8 years with Glanbia Food and 10 with Dairy Gold. I've got an undergraduate degree in environmental engineering, technical management, and a master's degree in environmental policy and management. And I currently oversee Dairy Gold's 11 food processing plants scattered around the Pacific Northwest. All 11 of them hold wastewater discharge permits to local municipalities or a port authority. And I'm speaking tonight in support of the city's ongoing efforts to upgrade and expand the capacity of the processed water reuse facility in partnership with Burnham SEV. Very briefly, Dairy Gold supports waste management, which is number one, science-based and intelligent. Number two, sustainable and protective of the environment. And number three, most importantly in this case, is scalable without increase in risk or negative community impacts. And we believe the City of Pasco's Public Works Director, Mr. Worley, in partnership with Burnham, is pursuing forward-thinking solutions which are science-based and sustainable. We believe the solutions are protective of the environment and safely scalable for future growth. Rather than creating potential risks while trying to take on more full-strength wastewater with only land application treatment in place, we feel the city's well-thought-out expansion plans put critical and crucial management and control provisions solidly in place for the future. By combining anaerobic digestion, nitrogen capture and control, and water reuse for crops, the city is demonstrating a commitment to sound engineering principles and true environmental protection. While this approach is painfully expensive, which never sits well with anybody, including Dairy Gold, we do believe the selected technical approach is necessary, as again, it brings needed technology and control to the management of food processing wastewater in Pasco. In closing, we see a forward-thinking city. And with Dairy Gold seeking long-term stability and sustainability, we see a good match. In today's marketplace, our customers, both domestic and international, demand business stability and sustainability, and we believe we will have that situation in Pasco. Just recently, I traveled over to Olympia with Steve to discuss our partnership with the city as a trusted, committed partnership agreement. And I told that group that it's extremely rare to see a facility that is tackling or intends to tackle waste to energy, resource recovery, and water reuse all in one facility plan. It's very rare to see something that tremendous come together at a waste management facility. Waste management facilities have never been your go-to popular glamorous place, but this facility is going to be an outstanding place. I do believe people are going to come to see it once it's all put together and operating with those type of attributes. It's going to be one of a kind, a very impressive facility, and we are happy to be part of it, thrilled to be part of it. And I want to thank you for your time and attention tonight and giving me the opportunity to speak about this important issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online?
There are, but I don't know if they want to speak, and if not, that's fine as well.
An invite to anyone online that wishes to speak on this? Second call. Third and final call. Thank you for participating. And with that, hearing no further comment, both online or in chambers, this hearing is now closed. And with that, we will move on to item 9 on our agenda, ordinances and resolutions not relating to hearings. Item A, resolution number 4306, third work acceleration agreement for the PWRF pre-treatment improvements. Director Worley.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor, members of council. Again, this item is related to the processed water reuse facility Phase 3 project. And as council may recall, we have staff has come before council with 2 other work acceleration agreements. These agreements are reimbursable agreements in an effort to allow Burnham to keep moving forward on the design while we continue to work towards the wastewater treatment agreement, which we just had the public hearing on. We had previous work acceleration agreements that had deadlines upon which we were trying to get the WTs executed, and we were not able to meet those. And so under those agreements, we are reimbursing Burnham for the costs associated for the design thus far. And the last agreement was taking us to the end of January. And obviously we didn't meet that since we had the public hearing tonight. And so this third agreement is to allow Burnham to continue to move forward with the design of the project. It has a total cost of up to $3 million. And I want to clarify that because the numbers in these work acceleration agreements tend to be a little bit high. We haven't quite reimbursed all of everything that's in them, which is good. They're very efficient in what they do. And the deadline for this particular one is the end of February, with the hope that we would be able to enter into the final wastewater treatment agreement that we just had the public hearing on by the end of this month. And so the goal here would be pass the work acceleration agreement number 3, allow work to continue. We hopefully will be able to get the wastewater treatment agreements for Burnham and for the processors executed by the end of this month. And then if that is the case, this reimbursement does not apply, because then all costs associated with the design and the construction will be delayed until the facility is up and running and operating as designed. Okay. Which is currently scheduled for roughly July, August, September 2024, depending on a lot of supply chain issues. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that. Do we have any questions of Director Worley? Mayor Pro Tem Maloney?
Yes, thank you. I continue to be, obviously I'm hesitant by and have been historically on this, that matter of continuing to, to trickle this on, but it does seem like there's the strong support here. So, so I will also be supporting this just to make sure that things keep on moving. Worst thing we could do is kind of fits and starts and end up delaying the overall rollout and operations of this facility based on, the fact that the legal paperwork is taking a little bit longer to sort all the way through with all the parties engaged. So I'll be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments?
I probably should add that the processors obviously have expressed concern about the cost. We have a pretty detailed rate study that has been developed for all the costs associated with the whole project. And as mentioned in the previous public hearing, staff will continue to pursue all available grants and loans to help bring those costs down.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none or hearing none, can I get a motion?
I move to approve resolution number 4306, authorizing the city manager to execute a third work acceleration agreement with Burnham SEV Pasco LLC for the anaerobic digestion and renewable natural gas project related to the processed water reuse facility Phase 3 project.
There's a motion, can I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Campos. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And it passes unanimously. Thank you. With that, we will move on to item B, ordinance on number 4637, Eichmeyer Roundy, zoning determination of annexed property, SZD 2022-002. Director White.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. And this zoning determination involves an annexation that occurred this past year, roughly 1,800 acres north of the existing city limits in Burns Road, on both sides of Road 68 and Road 100. The hearing examiner conducted a public hearing on the proposed zoning determination to assign to the annexation in January, and has recommended approval of a whole variety of residential densities and one commercial zoning category, the C1 zoning district. So for the vast majority of the site, about 1,200 acres or so, the examiner recommended RT zoning, which is a transitional zone. It's basically a holding pattern zone until the appropriate extension of utilities and infrastructure, including roads, can occur. Council, I'm sure, understands that all of this area is, well, or at least most of this area is farmland. So it is literally without any urban infrastructure. At any rate, he has recommended RT, R1, R3, and R4 zoning, residential densities, and then C1 zoning. And staff would ask council to concur with that recommendation and adopt the proposed ordinance.
Thank you for that. Do we have any questions or comments?
Madam Mayor, if I may, just walk us through the quasi-judicial script real quick. This is a quasi-judicial hearing to render a final decision on the materials presented. It's defined as a proceeding in which the council defines legal rights, duties, and privileges of specific parties in a hearing or other contested proceeding. The appearance of fairness doctrine applies, which means that the hearing must be fair in three respects: form, substance, and appearance. All council members should consider whether they have potential conflicts as follows: a demonstrated bias for or against any of the parties, any direct or indirect financial interest in the outcome of the proceeding which would affect the council members personally, whether there has been any prejudgment of the issues prior to hearing the facts, whether there has been any ex parte contact with anyone other than the staff prior to this hearing, and finally, any other conflict which a council member believes would prevent them from hearing this matter fairly and impartially. If any council member has any concerns or disclosures, now would be the time to make those known.
Councilwoman March and Councilmember Campos.
Mr. Ferguson, I would like to air that I do have, I guess I'd just like clarification on which roundy this application is for. I do have a friendship with one of the roundies, but don't know who is applying for this.
That I can't answer that question. It's a LLC, and I'm not sure who the principals are.
I feel like I could be fair and impartial, but they have not had any conversation with me about this, but I'm just putting that out there for my fellow council members to make that decision.
Thank you.
Same. As I've historically on every time this ordinance has kind of come up, the Eckmeyers and Roundies have been in front of us several times. I too have a friendship with Eckmeyer, but feel like there's no conflict of interest. I've had no ex parte communication on this. Stand to benefit zero. So continue to disclose any time that this is brought forward.
Great. So we just need both council members to decide whether they need to recuse themselves or if they feel they can both go forward.
I don't feel like I need to recuse myself.
Same.
Okay, great. Are there any members of the public seeking to disqualify a member of council from participating in the proceedings? Hearing none. Please proceed.
Thank you. And, sorry, let me backtrack to where I was at. We got a motion, it was seconded, no. Oh, it was the 4637, correct. Yeah.
I have a question.
So, question, Mayor Pro Tem Maloney.
Thank you, Mayor Barasas. Director White, can you help me understand, one thing I was looking for in the packet was our current comp plan. I didn't see any particular maps of that and how this aligns to that, which course, led me to the current annual process we are going through for updates to the comprehensive plan. Can you talk to me about how this zoning determination interacts with, or does it match with or not match with the proposed set of, or the annual plans that have been proposed and are in front of the Planning Commission? I believe next week will be in front of us.
Yes, it does. The comp plan map is actually included in the hearing examiner packet, and I don't know what exhibit it is. And yes, the recommended zoning districts are in conformance with the comprehensive plan, as is the RT zoning. There are not, well, yes, there are one or two comprehensive plan amendments that impact a portion of this area. One that I'm thinking of in particular on the far east side of the proposed zoning determination area of about 10 or 20 acres, if my memory serves me right. Other than that, the recommended zoning designations by the examiner are in conformance with the existing comprehensive plan.
For those 10 to 20 acres that you're referring to, are those in compliance, or are those in alignment with the current comp plan, so they're in compliance with the current comp plan?
They are.
Would we expect to see, do we know if the property owner or the city would be proposing that be changed to match the updated comp plan when, if or when those revisions to the comp plan are adopted? Basically, are we going to create a misalignment immediately out of the gate?
Well, we may, but it's almost immaterial because they would still have to apply for a rezoning process should the amendment be approved.
All right, thank you. That's all the questions I had.
Any further questions or comments from council? Hearing none or seeing none, can I get a motion?
I move to adopt ordinance number 4637, assigning zoning to the Eichmeyer-Roundy annexation area as recommended by the hearing examiner, and further authorized publication by summary only.
There's a motion. Can I get a second?
Second that.
Seconded by Councilman Serrano. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And it passes unanimously. Thank you. With that, we go on to item C. Ordinance number 4638, Alford Coal Zoning Determination of Annexed Property, ZD 2022-003. Again, Director White.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. And this is the same process as the previous item. It's a zoning determination for an annexation that occurred earlier this year. It's on the east side of Road 68 between Cow Trail Road and Deseret Drive. And it's strange to say those road names because, of course, we never have before, but they're in our newly designated urban area. It involves roughly 20 acres, and likewise, a hearing examiner conducted a hearing on this proposed R1 zoning for the 20 acres in January and has also recommended approval to City Council.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ferguson?
Great, thank you. Again, this is a quasi-judicial matter. Council members should consider whether they have potential conflicts, demonstrated bias, direct or indirect financial interest, whether there's been any prejudgment of the issues, whether there's been any ex parte contact, or whether any other conflict the council member believes would prevent them from hearing the matter fairly and impartially. So now would be the time to make those disclosures.
Thank you.
Seeing none. Are there any members of the public seeking to disqualify a member of council from these proceedings? Doesn't appear to be.
Great. And with that, do we have any questions or comments to staff on this item? Mayor Pro Tem Maloney.
Thank you, Mayor Barajas. Just briefly, I'm just going to make a statement. I know this area here, when we were looking at the annexation originally, a number of community members within what continues to be the county boundaries and not within the city limits had a lot of concerns about the city inadvertently or deliberately annexing them against their wishes. And certainly this does not expand any annexation. This is not an annexation. This is just the properties that have already chosen to be annexed into the city, having their zoning is applied. So I just want to make sure that's clear to anyone who might be concerned about this being an action that's going to directly infringe on their property rights, and that's simply not the case in this matter. The only statement I wanted to make, just to make sure that we clarify it for people who are concerned. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, can I get a motion?
I move to adopt ordinance number 4638, assigning zoning to the Alford Coal annexation area as recommended by the hearing examiner, and further authorize publication by summary only.
There's a motion, can I get a second? Seconded by Councilmember Brown. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And it passes unanimously. With that, we go on to our next item on the agenda in item D, ordinance number 4639. Lost my place. Ordinance number 4639-2023, revenue bond for LID number 151 debt service, and we have Director Buckley.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. If you'll recall, this is an item that we looked at the end of January. It is requesting approval of an ordinance for bonds to be purchased by the Equipment Replacement Fund to support an LID that has been completed and finalized. There is no change. Well, there's one small change in the ordinance. We did put a condition in there that should we issue further LID bonds in the future and want to consolidate this amount into that issuance, that's something that we could do, but it's not certainly necessary. Other than that, it's just a completion of the sale, and we can finalize the LID.
Thank you for that. Do we have any questions for Director Buckley? Seeing none, can I get a motion?
Yes, Mayor Barajas, I move to adopt ordinance number 4639 relating to local improvement district number 151, fixing the terms of local improvement district number 151 bond, providing the purchase of such bond by the city from funds on deposit in the city's equipment replacement fund, and fixing the term of an interest rate on local improvement district number 151 assessment installments.
There's a motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Milne. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And it passes unanimously. Thank you for that. Moving on to our next item on the agenda, item E, ordinance number 4640, amending the Pasco Municipal Code, Chapter 13.80, related to stormwater, and Director Worley.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor. It is no surprise that I would like to turn this item over to our Deputy Public Works Director for Engineering, Maria Serra.
No surprise there. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Before I pass this item on to our Environmental Compliance Coordinator for a very brief presentation, I wanted to give just the highlights of the item. This item is proposed to modify the municipal code in very small areas, just to address the lack of alignment between our municipal code and the permit we are required to comply with Department of Ecology for stormwater. And the ultimate goal is to protect the underground water and the river. With that, I will let Michael Henao take the stand and guide you through a super brief presentation we have put together.
Thank you. Thank you. We look forward to hearing your super brief presentation.
Good evening. Yeah, I will do my best. I'll go real fast. Okay, so is there a way to get the PowerPoint? There it is. Perfect. Thank you. Perfect. All right, so I'm here to talk about stormwater. As Maria said, our goal is to make sure that the language that we currently have in our code aligns to the language that we have in our Phase 2 stormwater permit. So here I just want a quick history of our permit. The first Phase 2 stormwater permit was issued by the Department of Ecology in 2007, and it was issued to 22 cities in eastern Washington and 7 counties, meaning that all those 22 cities, which includes Pasco and the 7 counties, have to answer to the same regulations and have to meet the same goals as every other city under that permit. Then different permits, a new permit was issued in 2014, and then a 2019, which is our current permit. And there will be a new permit that will be coming in the summer of 2024. So when we think about stormwater discharges, we can think about 2 different specific groups. So we think about allowable discharges, meaning waters or flows that can discharge into a stormwater system without having to meet any specific parameters. Then we have conditionally allowable discharges, meaning that those flows need to meet specific parameters for them to be able to be discharged into the stormwater system that eventually goes into the river. Anything that does not fall within those 2 groups is considered an illicit discharge. So as mentioned before, our idea is to align the language that we have in our code to the language that we have in our permit. Currently, in our permit, there's a group of activities and events that are under a group called authorized discharges. Those groups are now classified as conditionally allowable discharges. Then we also have another group called permitted discharges. Those groups are now classified as allowable discharges. Then we need to add a new section to the code that talks about prohibition of illicit connections. Our code already addresses this section when it talks about sewer. So we talked about like what kind of connections you can have into the sewer system. So what we're trying to do here is address that into the stormwater. So we want to make sure that we say you cannot connect your sewer line into the stormwater system. The only thing that can go into the stormwater system is downspouts or just stormwater. So the way that we want to address these changes moving forward is that we want to see everything from an educational point of view. So we have updated our educational pamphlets. We want to be able to post a lot more information about stormwater on our website and use it on our Facebook page. And then here are some examples of the pamphlets that we have created that now give the opportunity for the community to learn about conditionally about allowable discharges and allowable discharges. And also they can learn about different activities that could affect the stormwater system. Here they can also find information on how to reach our group in which we can talk about them, the difference, and if they want to learn more about stormwater, we can educate them on that, and we can also learn from them, because the goal is to educate the public so we can protect our waterways and groundwater. And these are the actions that we're proposing, is amending the City Pasco Municipal Code, Chapter 13080, 120, 130, and then adding Chapter 1380, 140. Any questions?
Councilman Brown?
Just a quick one. If you can go back to the 2 ways of communicating to the public, I believe I saw updated pamphlet and digital format. Can you give me that second bullet point in more detail? Is that how is that going to happen?
So the idea is to use the pamphlet that we just created and create like infographics that we can easily post in Facebook or other social media groups. And then we also do community outreach. We actually have an event coming up in the Homing Garden Show in 2 weeks. And then I'll be in that table educating the public about stormwater.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councilman Serrano?
Yeah, I heard you indicate that we're going to see a potential change or an update in 24. Can you please make sure that we get that ahead of time as you negotiate the terms and conditions? I recall seeing this, I think last year or in 2019. I don't remember which time, and maybe both. I take umbrage when the state really wants to push down what's authorized, what's not. On one hand, I hear local control. On the other hand, I hear state control. Then I hear the NIPTs, and it's questioning how far expansive this needs to go. I understand the state doesn't want to try to target 22 municipalities through various different permits, but when our residents, I look at some of these discharges. There may be people who are washing their cars with the Dawn soap because they can afford the Dollar Tree Dawn soap and not the $7 car wash. Especially with our conditional times of of inflation and other monetary issues. So I really, I mean, I'm going to oppose this not because I think you've done anything wrong or because you all have failed us, but I think the state, to a degree, is it's pushing down its needs on our people. Again, I understand it's more of an opposition in show than in real force, but please just make sure that in 24 we're well aware of what's going on, and if there's something that we can do to petition ecology ahead of time as a body, if that's something we so desire, that would be helpful. So thank
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah, I can definitely keep you informed. The first drop is becoming official in July of this year, and there'll be a comment period for that draft. And the city of Pasco also participates with all other cities, agencies in which we got together and already send out our comments to what we have seen for the upcoming permit. So we're very active on that, make sure that we're representing our public.
So, and I'm certainly happy to weigh in from it looks like I'm getting nods from us, or at least the majority potentially, to the extent we need to work with other jurisdictions, we're happy to do that, or I'll speak for us. We're happy to do that to strengthen your comments where the political power, if you will, is necessary. So thank you. I appreciate the work you're doing. And again, please don't take my note out as anything against either of you or your staffs. It's more of, dang ecology.
Mayor Pro Tem Maloney.
Yeah, I won't restate my fellow council members' comments. I am equally concerned. I mean, can't wash your car in your driveway. You can rinse it off, but you can't wash it with soap. Like, that feels absurd to me. You can't backwash your few dozen gallons out of your pool without specifically treating it. I mean, how many individual residents are set up to handle these things? It seems a little absurd to me and way overstep. I understand overall concerns with the environment. I'm not trying to diminish that, but there's ways of going about it, I think, that are more effective than targeting individual users like this. But one question I have specifically about car washes, and I saw it on the pamphlet as well, was indicating that are all of our commercial car washes in compliance with this permit already, or is this something that they will also have to institute additional measures for control and filtration?
So I do not know, do not have any specific information about the code that they have to meet to a car wash when they build one. I'm assuming that they have some sort of grease traps installed, but that's as far as I can share. I'm not familiar with all the additional code. Oh, you are. Perfect.
So one of the differences is that car washes have a system where they divide, grease and oil separators, and they're connected to the sewer system. So actually their discharges are going to our municipal plant, where if we were washing the car, say in the driveway, and that detergent is running onto the curb all the way to the catch basin, then that ends up either in the river or in the groundwater. And so that's really where the difference is between those two.
Great, thank you for helping me understand that. As I echo Councilmember Serrano's firm frustration with this, I'll be voting in favor of this. Our permit is what our permit is. Our laws need to reflect our permit. So I will be voting in favor of this, but I share, I think, equally the overall concern that initiated her need to make this change here, and hope that if there's any pressure we can apply, any sort of reasonability we can bring back into this, I'm in favor of that as we look forward to the future permits. Thank you.
Councilman Campos.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to appreciate my fellow council members' sentiment, but I'm looking at big picture things. We've got some large projects that are coming up that could potentially look at illicit or unapproved discharges, and just, I think, coming up with a way to make sure that it matches our permit is the smart move. I understand washing your car is important, but we've seen this before with pool discharge. I can't think of a single instance or a complaint that I've heard in the last year since we moved forward on that. So, big picture item, I think that it's a smart move to make sure that we align with our permit.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? I do have actually a question. regarding the illicit connections, I have heard calls, well, I've received calls, and conversations with individuals that live outside of Pasco. Their comment was that Pasco is too strict by not allowing their organization to just connect to a sewer line within city limits, or even a parking lot to discharge, say, a mobile clinic. Their day's use. What is, in comparison to other cities, how strict are Pasco regulations? And question number two, why do you think that possibly other cities are allowing it and not Pasco?
So that would be, so now we're talking about sewer lines, correct?
Yeah, discharge, yeah.
Sure. So I'm not extremely familiar with the ordinance that other cities have compared to what Pasco has. So I think I will have to go and read those before I can answer that question properly.
And I also would need to understand a little bit more specifics about what the complaint is in order to be able to compare what Pasco's requirements are versus what the other cities' requirements are. So if you want to get a hold of me offline.
I can connect with you.
That would be great.
Specifically on the details. I didn't want to disclose too much, but yeah, I'm happy to connect with you.
Be happy to help.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you, he'll get my question.
Perfect.
Thank you for that. Do we have any further questions or comments from council on this? Hearing and seeing none, can I get a motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 4640, amending the Pasco Municipal Code, Chapter 13.80, Stormwater Management Utility, specifically Section 13.80.120, authorized discharge, and amending Section 13.80.130, permitted discharges.
There's a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Campos. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay. Or whatever I'm supposed to say.
2, 5 yes, 2 no. Correct?
Yeah, 5 yes, 2 no. Yeah.
Okay, and with that, we have a vote. Thank you. Moving on to our next item on the agenda, item F, resolution number 4307, supplement number 1 to professional services agreement for construction management services for citywide with Anderson Perry and Director Worley.
Thank you,
That
Madam
was
Mayor.
another long one.
We try to make them as long as we can. Again, because staff does such a great job, I'd like to turn this over to Maria.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. We are presenting to you amendment number 1 for construction management services to be provided by Anderson Perry in our citywide traffic signal phase 2 project. Anderson Perry was selected to provide this construction management services, and we entered an agreement in, I believe, December, when there was not an opportunity to come to council, but we did have some submittals that needed to be reviewed, and we wanted to get that constructability review completed with their support. And right now we are proposing to amend that original contract, which was a very limited scope, to include the remainder of the scope, which would carry us through the end of construction with all on-site inspections and reporting and change order negotiation and anything that may come in that project. Hopefully no change order negotiation, but if there was a case for that, we would have their support.
Thank you for that. Do we have any questions or comments from council? No questions. Wow. Since we have no questions, can I get a motion?
Mayor Bras, I move to approve resolution number 4307, authorizing the city manager to execute supplement number 1 to the professional services agreement with Anderson Perry and Associates, Inc. for the citywide traffic signal improvements phase 2 project.
There's a motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilwoman Roach. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I was just gonna ask if we need to call him out as the interim city manager, but I don't think it's substantial. It's fine.
Okay.
I just wanted to.
I do sign things as interim city manager for, I think,
So
90-some
it wasn't
percent.
designated as interim, it was designated as city manager.
I have the same authority
Okay, that's-
statutorily, yeah.
I just wanna make sure that we're covered and we're not making a motion that's gonna have to somehow, okay, so I.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that was an aye?
Yeah, that was an aye.
Okay. So.
A yes.
A yes. And so that is unanimous. Thank you. With that, we move on to item number 10, unfinished business.
We do have the meeting minutes that got moved there, just in
Correct.
case. Okay.
Yes. And so unfinished business, I will hand that over to Councilwoman Roach.
Mayor and council, I just wanted some clarity on that item that I requested to be pulled off the consent agenda. The concern that was brought up to me was one of technical and process, that the vote that was taken by council on January 17th on retail cannabis was one that initially passed, and that we as a council did not follow Robert's Rules of Order in casting a revote, or those that decided to change their vote did not rescind their vote in the process, the appropriate process. And so I'm bringing that up for conversation with council and staff. So.
Okay. Discussion. Mayor Pro Tem Maloney.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe I attended that meeting remotely, so I certainly can't speak personally to what I heard or didn't. All voice votes are very muddled online. My recommendation would be to table this to our next business meeting to allow staff to do some research to find out whether there's any potential violation of our city code or processes, and be able to bring that conversation back to us after reviewing the video of the meeting, rather than trying to litigate through this tonight. Is that?
We
I
have
see a
direction
shake of a head.
from-
No, so here's the deal. So the vote, so when there's a voice vote under Robert's Rules of Order, which we follow by custom, it's not in our code that we follow, but we follow it by custom, because that's what we, by custom done. So I'm sorry. Okay, but so essentially what happens is once we go through a voice vote, the vote remains open. Anyone can change their vote until the vote is called. Okay, and when the vote's called, that's at the end when the mayor will say, the motion passes, whatever, right? That at that point, then you would need to do some kind of, at that point, if you're in the same meeting, you could do a motion to rescind, or excuse me, motion to reconsider, because you're in the same meeting. So in this particular case, and we're happy to go back and look at it again, but in this particular case, the way the voice vote went, it was asked for a roll call before the vote had been called as actually passing. So then the roll call vote actually was the final vote. You're allowed to change your vote at any time until it's called. So my understanding of how the process went when we went through that, it was a voice vote, and then after that, somebody asked for a roll call vote, and then everybody went through and said their vote. Then the vote was called at that point. So if there's some disagreement about whether that actually took place, happy to go back and look at that. But when Councilman Melanie asked me if he could change his vote, if that's the particular situation we're talking about, the vote had not been called, as I understood, or as I recall. So, and I think the minutes reflect that. So at that point, then anyone can change their vote until the vote's called, and then the roll call vote supersedes any other voice vote. There's two things. There's a regular vote and a recorded vote. Regular votes are voice. Recorded votes are roll call. Certain things require an actual recorded vote. That's why we vote on the consent agenda, because it has things that require money, to spend money. Those have to be done with an affirmative majority of the council as a whole. That's why we do those by roll call. So at this point, there's no debate about, in my mind, about what took place at that particular meeting with the number of votes that went forward. If what council's asking is us to go back and review the tape, see if that was in fact the case, obviously we're happy to do that. But I have no concerns about that right now.
Any questions or concerns? Any further discussion? Councilman Serrano.
I'll just offer that that supports my recollection of the meeting. I don't believe there's a need for staff to spend time reviewing anything, and that the 4-3 vote, I don't know, the second 4-3 vote related to conditional use permits in the I-1, 2, and 3 zoning districts is the vote that should stand.
Okay. Mr. Ferguson, can you guide us in case there is a need or a desire to rescind a vote?
So that would be a separate item. I think at this point, what the item on the floor is whether the minutes need to be passed at this point, because those have not been adopted, because those were pulled off of the consent agenda. So at this point, I can certainly walk us through that next, but at this point, I think we need to decide whether we're comfortable moving forward with the minutes, or you guys want us to go back and actually review the tape and come back with a different report potentially. So
Is there any further questions regarding the minutes being pulled and need for more review?
let me make sure that we're okay. I'm just reviewing the code here. Preparation and approval of minutes, PMC 205040. City clerk shall prepare the minutes of all regular and special city council meetings. A copy of the minutes shall be prepared for approval at city council at its next regular meeting. The minutes need not be read in open meeting except on a motion of council. The minutes of any previous meeting may be read in full. The minutes of each meeting must be approved by the city council. So it looks like a copy of the minutes shall be prepared for approval of the city council at its next regular business meeting. So it shall be prepared for approval. It doesn't say that it shall be approved at the next meeting. So I think if the council wanted to move forward, I think we could do that. Not adopting them tonight.
Right. So is there a desire from council, and I'll come back to you, Mayor Patemoloni. Is there a desire from council to approve the minutes as they are and move forward, or is there a desire to bring them back at next meeting?
I want to move the minutes forward. I think that's the best option, and I do stand behind my vote. I know initially I was a no because I'm against cannabis, but I realized this was probably the best if I was to have any option. That's why I did ask Mr. Ferguson if I could change my vote, and I do stand behind it. So it is correct in my opinion, and I think we should just move forward on this.
Okay. Did you have a question, Mayor Patemoloni?
Is that a formal motion?
Can we get a motion then?
I'm happy to make whatever motion anyone would like, and certainly my fellow council members. Of course, it's not delegated to me officially. So if someone wants to make a motion, I'm happy to step out. Or happy to make a motion.
So I was gonna wait to talk about this topic, but clearly, process has been kind of my thing. And as Mr. Ferguson has mentioned, we follow Robert's rule by custom, and I am frustrated by kind of our frivolity with the custom. It seems like we kind of bounce around back and forth. We do some of these things week in, week out, and then we still ask the same consistent questions week in, week out. All of us up here have taken the OPMA training, and we all should be under the impression that anybody can make a motion at any given time. The question, for clarity, that was directed to Councilman Milne, was that a formal motion? If so, I would like to second the motion to move your minutes forward.
Yes. Yes, sorry, yes.
Can you define what you mean by moving the minutes? Are you suggesting, I'm lost at what the motion means.
So
are we adopting the motions?
I just want to approve the minutes of the Pasco City Council regular meeting held on January 17th, 2023, and special meeting and regular workshop held on January 23 of 2023.
Thank you.
There's a motion?
Second.
And seconded. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 And it passes unanimously and we move forward. Okay. Any further questions?
Mayor, did you have a question?
I do have a question, but I'll bring it up in miscellaneous. With that, we'll go on to item 11, new business. Nothing listed. Yes, sir. Nothing listed under new business. Miscellaneous discussion.
One quick item, if I may, Mayor. Just want to remind you all that Wednesday at 4 p.m. is the Station 85 groundbreaking. It's on Road 100 between Chelan and Maple Drive. So hopefully some of you can make it there for the big event. I don't know if Chief Gear is online or not, but it's all he talks about, so he's pretty excited.
Chief Gear, we support you. Councilwoman Roach.
I would love to make that ground breaking ceremony, but I think I've been assigned a different groundbreaking that conflicts somewhat for Prime Dental.
Yes.
So I'll be there.
I think you might have time to get between them if your calendar allows. I think there's probably a stagger time.
Okay.
I know
And
they're
so
back to back.
On that note, Councilwoman Roach, I so much appreciate you stepping forward for the dental. My anticipated trip to Spokane was canceled. It's up to you if you still want to go and attend in my place. I would appreciate that, and then I will catch up with you at the fire station.
Okay, I'll try to make both. I had just a different request that came to me from a Pasco resident. There was in light of recent things that not so recent for me, but just historically what I've experienced in terms of discrimination, and I know that others have experienced in Pasco. There is a Senate bill that was introduced, 5427, and it's not going to make this magically go away, but I thought it might be of interest for Council of Pasco, because this is something that we've supported in proclamation and resolution, that we support inclusivity and diversity in our community. We value it, and so this bill is to track bias and hate crimes. It's just simply a hotline to track those. I plan to send it to City Clerk. It's SB 5427, and City Clerk, if you could pass it along to the rest of council, that would be great. But my ask to this council is if we would like to add that to our, either a letter of support or add it to our legislative agenda.
Thank you for sharing that.
I have a different topic as well.
Discussion?
Yeah, discussion that came up because of the Visit Tri-Cities meeting that we had. The request that came out of TriDec and Visit Tri-Cities and the other organizations, they asked if all the board members, if we'd like to sign on to this letter opposing the Horsehaven Hills wind farm. I opted not to sign it because it is not a conversation that council has had, and I did not feel comfortable signing on behalf of, as a Pasco City Council member, if you all were not in favor of that, or you were in favor of that, I don't know, because it's just not been one of our priorities. And so the topic made me just realize that as you all go out to boards and commissions and perhaps are elicited for the same types of signatures and support, especially when it comes to something controversial, I hope that you all would have that same consideration and deliberation of putting your signature to something that maybe you are partial towards, but not necessarily without the conversation of this body first. So I hope you can appreciate that I stepped out of that, and would ask you to do the same if there's a hot button issue that you think would be better had here first before a signature.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman Brown and then Mayor Pro Tem Maloney.
Regarding, just to tag on to Councilwoman Roach, the Senate bill, I'm excited to hear more about that. So if City Clerk finds it, I'm excited about that. That is very important that we pay intentional respect to, I think. It's usually swept under the rug, but I think if we get in front of it, acknowledge it for what it is, we can work around many different things. There's trauma that's associated to this. There is segregation, separation. We can go down the list. But if we're involved in unifying to make this correction, I think it could reach many different areas that will give a nice statement that we can all do this together. It's where I'm at, just getting the tip of this. So I'm excited about that bill, or information coming forward for that. So I just want to tell Councilwoman Roach, thank you for bringing that up. I'm sure all of us have tapped into this area some way or another, and let's just make it better. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Maloney.
Thank you, Mayor Barajas. And certainly I'm interested in reading the language of that bill and getting a take from our contract lobbyist about whether there's any particular concerns in there. I can't imagine there being much, but you never know. But I would also, in that same vein of legislative priorities and lobbying, I will be going up next week as part of the Association of Washington Cities delegation to lobby on behalf of our legislative agenda. I'm set up with I think 6 different representatives and senators individually to push forward on items we've done. We've talked about with our local legislators, in addition to hopefully being able to amplify our voices on some of these big priorities. I would bring to your attention that we did receive an email from, I think, Mr. Lincoln regarding pursuits and police pursuits and clarifying and modifying the state law around that from what was passed 2 years ago. I haven't fully digested the letter, but I think we have a pretty short time window in which we're being asked to weigh in if you would like to sign on to it. Mr. Lincoln, could you speak to us a little bit about timeline for that, and to Councilwoman Roach's comment earlier of how do we get on the same page on fast-moving issues like this? Is this one in alignment with our legislative priorities that we, as a body, already passed?
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think that this one is in line. I'm trying to find the item. Pursuits in particular, there was comments about support of public safety and behavioral health. I think that it fits in line with that. I would also add, I don't think there's a need to necessarily amend your legislative agenda unless there's wording that you'd like to see added on there. But if you as a body give direction in a meeting like this, or sometimes it's even shorter term where I have to email to you and sometimes include the attorney on those, I can get those in front of you a little faster. I agree there's going to be items that are short turnaround. This one in particular, I didn't see what Brianna had mentioned as the timing for that. I apologize for that.
If I'm not mistaken, it's by the 8th.
Right. Yes, I see that, by the 8th. So I did receive a couple of responses from council members who are comfortable with adding their names there. And that's just going to be kind of the nature of a fast-moving session that at times we'll just have to pivot, I guess, for lack of a better term.
And I just would like to defer back to Chief. If you can elaborate maybe on the wording that is being proposed and the need.
So the legislative recommendations that there needs to be a fix to the policy that they passed 2 years ago absolutely needs to be worked through. The exact language and what's proposed certainly gets changed through the process. But what we should be supporting is policy change to move it into a direction for public safety. In our city, we had a 200% increase in auto thefts just last year. There's plenty of examples out there of law enforcement officers letting dangerous criminals go because it didn't meet the threshold by law. That standard needs to go back to reasonable suspicion and not left at the high standard of probable cause.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Maloney and then Councilman Brown.
And I appreciate that. And I believe that's what the main item that this I think policy changes. I think the right terminology for this letter. I think that's what one of the big focuses of this. There's more to a lot of this. I'm still digesting that, so I certainly am not ready. I couldn't speak to the rest of this, but the AWC is the Association of Washington Cities is pushing this, and I think this is in alignment with some of the policies that Chief is looking for on this. If I'm not mistaken. So in general, I'm comfortable signing up to this. I knew we had a little bit of time, so I want to bring up in miscellaneous discussion.
Full disclosure, I did agree to support Chief.
Great, and so just as a council, we might want to be rapid on this one. This one's a big deal, on trying to dial this in. That's all.
Yeah,
Councilman
just
Bell.
my put on this thing was the fear of attaching your name to something and then having the fear that the revisit to that before it's finalized not be put on the table is, and I can only speak for myself. I don't like that, and I'm not comfortable with that. If we're going to do something, we should be fully unified and fully transparent. So if I'm attaching my name to something, policy, I'm all about it. But bring it back before the final goes out and have it reviewed one more time to make sure that we're comfortable with that. That's just me putting my name on something. I don't know how anybody else feels, but I definitely support policy and processes. That's huge with me. But before it goes out, another final is only fair, especially if our names and reputations are attached to that and there's conflict involved. When that final goes out, I want to defend it with everything I have. That's just my statement. That's where I'm leaving it.
The pursuits item on your agenda, the quote is clarify that officers can engage in vehicular pursuits when appropriate. So it's covered, I think, fairly directly in the adopted legislative agenda for this particular item.
Thank you.
Great, and I would clarify that there's a letter out there by the AWC. It's a letter. It is not specific into legislative language to that detail. It is definitely a policy level, and they're indicating in both the House bill and the Senate bill that they believe meets those policy goals. So there's a one pager. This would be us signing on to someone else's as opposed to deviating from our position as well. So just as a comment on that. So process-wise, lobbying is weird and hard, very fast-moving, and super duper frustrating. So appreciate you all thinking about this a little bit more. Thank you.
Councilman Milne.
Yeah, obviously I'm for the police being able to pursue people. To me, it's crazy that you can't when you work so hard for your stuff and then have people run off with it and the cops can't chase them down. My question to you, Mr. Lincoln, was do we need to sign the letter as far as on the link, or do I just respond? I did respond to an affirmative, but
I'll make sure to take care of it for anyone who's responded that they're comfortable with having their names attached to it. I'm sure it's an online form, but wanting to make sure that you're comfortable with it is my key. So thank you.
Oh yes, thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Any other items or discussion for miscellaneous? Councilwoman Roach.
I don't know that I want to have the conversation here tonight, but just to add it to our maybe agenda of topics for our retreat, our mini retreat, to talk about animal shelter. That I would be in favor of that.
Okay. Thank you. And I do have a question actually, and I'll defer to Mr. Ferguson. Going back to the meeting minutes and the discussion and question regarding rescinding a vote or rescinding, revoking the vote. Can you walk us through the process of
Sure.
how we could go about doing that?
Sure, yeah, so I'll try to keep it as brief as I can because I know we're all tired here, but essentially, if somebody wanted to change their vote from the meeting where the motion to adopt the resolution, I believe it was, I forget, but I can't remember which option it was, I can't remember if it was B or C, but whichever motion we adopted during that meeting. If somebody wants to change that vote, there's a few different ways under Robert's Rules of Order that we could attempt, or that could be attempted. The first one is if it's done during the actual meeting, it would be a motion to reconsider, and it would have to be somebody who is in the majority, who voted in the majority. That, again, has to be done during the same meeting. So at this point, obviously, we're 2 meetings downrange here. So there's 2 options now that if folks want to go through, but they both have a notice requirement. So I'll kind of walk you through that. But essentially, the 2 options are a motion to amend something previously adopted or a motion to rescind. Both of those motions have a notice requirement that if it wasn't noticed prior to the meeting and the motion is attempted to be made at a meeting, it has to carry a 2/3 majority because there was not proper prior notice. So So that's the motion to amend something previously adopted, and that's really a tool to attempt to tweak the motion or of the actual resolution that was passed. So essentially, that would be changing a specific fact in the motion, like from 8,000 to 4,000 or something very specific. So that's probably not the best option since we had several motions to choose from on that particular evening, which had all the different combinations. So the other option is a motion to rescind. So that again can be made by anybody and also has the same notice requirements. So that if it was properly noticed prior and it was on the agenda that it was going to be a topic, then it would only require a simple majority. Obviously, in this case, it hasn't been noticed. It wasn't an item on the agenda. And so that notice requirement wouldn't be met. So it would have to, for that motion to carry, if somebody made that motion this evening, it would have to also have 2/3 majority, which in a case of 7 council members is 5. So those are the ways to do that. The other way, if there can't be 2/3 majority for the motion to rescind in this particular meeting, one thing that can happen is a simple majority can request that the city manager make sure that that resolution or that the resolution that was previously passed comes back on the next agenda. So with a regular simple majority, somebody could make a motion to make sure that that notice requirement is met, and then at that meeting, it would only require a simple majority. So it's kind of a two-step process. It's a little complicated, but really what it comes down to is whether there's enough support to pass it without notice this evening, or whether there would be enough support to give the proper notice so that could come back on the next regular meeting, and then it would only require a simple majority at that time.
Okay, so if there was a motion now to rescind a vote, this would be brought back for discussion? No.
So no, if somebody wants to make a motion to rescind tonight and it receives a second, then it would need to carry by 2/3 because it hasn't been properly noticed. If it then fails, somebody could subsequently make a motion to bring back the cannabis resolution. That could then properly be noticed on the agenda by the city clerk. We could come back, and at that point, a simple majority would be able to rescind it at that point.
In that case, I make a motion to rescind.
Point of order. Madam Mayor, I believe as a chair, you're not allowed to make a motion.
Okay.
That's not true. No, not in this case. No, in this case, I think she's fine to make. Yeah, because that is.
And as a chair, right, you can uphold or deny a point of order, right?
Correct.
So point of order not withheld.
Point of order not withheld.
There we go. Thanks.
Do I need to repeat myself? Okay.
I'm sorry, Mayor Barajas. What do you want to rescind? Could you be more specific? 'Cause I want to make sure I understand what you're asking to rescind.
I rescind my vote and I don't even recall the motion that was voted on. If you have it in front of you, but I wish to bring this back to discussion. Really.
So
For
for
clarification,
clarification,
cannabis sales, we're talking about resolution 4303.
4303.
Is that what you're?
Correct.
Okay.
So, motion, sorry. Resolution number 4303. I rescind my vote on that.
so you're making the motion?
I'm making a motion.
Okay, so it needs a second?
Is there a second?
I just need a point of clarification.
Sure.
She needs a second to rescind her vote and then a
2/3 majority.
a 2/3 majority.
That's correct.
Because we didn't do it in notice.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a second.
As part of discussion, Mr. Ferguson, is this a individual council member rescinding their vote, or is this asking the body to rescind the decision that we made on the resolution previously?
That's the latter. So it is a motion to rescind the approval of resolution 4303.
So we as a body are considering whether or not.
You go back to zero. There's
We're
going
not
to be,
reevaluating Mayor Barajas's vote. We are instead, as a body, being asked to rescind the entire approval of that resolution.
that's correct. And there will be nothing standing.
In essence, we're just striking what we did before, and then we're back at ground zero. Of we're not replacing it with something right this point in time. We would be then
Bringing it back.
That's correct. You would actually be undoing the action that you did at a previous meeting completely.
okay. Thank you. I appreciate that clarification.
So there's a motion, there's a second.
Should we roll call this?
Any member can require that.
I don't know if I'm supposed to motion that or just say I require that.
No, just say roll
But
call.
Here? Yeah, no, roll call, please.
Roll call vote.
Any questions?
And question from Councilmember
Totally
Brown.
perplexed. I'm so far out of the river. There's no paddle. There's no boat.
Well, I had a week to
Okay, at least you had a week. So I think I'm interpreting this right. We're gonna undo what we did, and we're gonna start all over again with the voting process and how everyone feels.
That's
Is
correct.
that what we're doing?
That's correct.
Only if it passes
That's right.
on a 5-2 or 5 or more, 2/3 majority. A no vote would mean we're sticking with it and we're done.
And Mr. Ferguson, for clarification, and I'll come back to you, Councilman Combs. For clarification, rescinding, bringing it back, potentially bringing it back for more discussion, for further discussion, to further get clarification on how to move forward with that resolution, correct?
You could certainly do that. You request that the city manager put that on your agenda because that's how we set the agenda. But at this point, you have no items currently pending, and if you rescind this, it's as if nothing ever happened.
Okay. Does that help? Mayor Protem Maloney, you have questions?
So we're under discussion at this point in time, right? So we've had a motion, we've had a second. So before we take a vote, we have an opportunity to continue to discuss at this point in time. So this would be if anyone wants to explain why they're choosing to, or why they think they're going to take what vote they will plan on taking. This would be a great time to explain your reasoning behind that and what you're looking for, to implore other council members to join you. Because obviously we as a body have not had a conversation about this. So I just want to make sure that we understand the
So
process. Thank you.
let me elaborate. Just briefly, let me elaborate
Okay.
briefly. I feel that 7 options on this was overwhelming. I wish I would have had more direction, in particular from staff, in regards to process. And so, yes, I do feel like I need further discussion on this particular resolution before it moves any further. Councilman Brown, and then Councilman Campos.
I'm coming. It's just, this whole topic is a lot. And I would really like to get this behind us as soon as possible. But I am now better than where I was 5 minutes ago. If we're going to go into full conversation, I want to be 1,000% transparent, which means conversation that happened prior to my appointment, which was left unclear. We need it all laid on the table to have this discussion. I don't know how that works, but I'm perplexed. I'm just being very transparent. It's some pieces are there and some pieces aren't. So when we talk about these different zones, I wasn't clear on some of them. I stand on what I said. I'm not changing that. But we have to be very, very clear when discussion comes back again. All cards on the table from beginning to end. That's the way I would feel comfortable. I would feel like I've received all the information that was out there. So prior to my appointment in June or July, whenever that happened, I'm so foggy right now, I don't know when I even got here, is that we go back and really get the information. Because now this is it's like muddy water for me. And we need to be very clear, and we need to walk this line very clear and one step at a time. And what happened in that last meeting, it was just a cluster of a paragraph that just threw me way off with 7 options. And it wouldn't have been fair for me to say yes in a paragraph, and then you have all these options down here. So it just wasn't clear. The direction on how to take that vote was not clear to me. Is that enough, or you need some more?
Well, so the reason why the process that we've had to utilize, because I can assure you this is not my preferred process for going forward. The concern that we have is that an ordinance needs to be drafted. That ordinance, if the council decides to move forward, that ordinance could be quite lengthy depending on what the requirements of council or the direction of council is to come back with that ordinance. This resolution is an attempt to try to make sure that we focus and know exactly what council wants us to come back with. So, and that's why we've come forward with that. And so there's a lot of factors. This is an extremely complicated issue. And so there's a lot of factors. And so we want to make sure that we get that right, because that will take an enormous amount of drafting to draft, say, for example, a conditional use permit process. Because it's not just dropping something in the code. It's wherever else in the code do we need to tweak some things. So it could take an enormous amount of resources to try to come back with something that may or may not be what council was anticipating they wanted to come back and have a vote on. So that's what this goal of this resolution was. And so limiting it to those 2 factors that we really that we heard from council were related to zones and whether it was going to have a conditional use permit or not. So what you saw in those 6 motions and then the quote catch-all at the very end was each combination that was mentioned prior so that council could really feel like they weren't hemmed in by only receiving 2 options of, well, wait a sec, that's commercial, that includes commercial and industrial, but it doesn't have a conditional use permit process. So we limited it to those 2 factors, zoning and whether it would have a conditional use permit process with it. And then that pops out 6 different options because there was the 2 zones that were discussed. So that's how we got the 6 options, and we tried to limit it to that. But we're certainly happy to take suggestions.
Madam Mayor, I'm comfortable with moving forward with further discussion on this. I'm better now, so good job.
Councilman Campos.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry, I'm picking on everybody up here, and it's not. I think we carry the burden for making sure that we're responsible for knowing what we're voting for. And if this were a less controversial topic, I'd be full support of this. But this seems kind of underhanded and kind of shifty the way we're going about it. I would personally love to see A, but the people who were in this chamber and heard us make a resolution to move forward with B are expecting us to stick with B and move forward that way. As far as the 7 motions going, absolutely, that's a lot. But I've been involved in every conversation that I feel like most of you guys have been involved in. And that was the direction that we were giving the staff. Every which way to sideways. And to their credit, I think what they're doing is trying to give us what we asked for. To our credit, we're trying to take in every piece of information we had and try to come up with something that worked for people. And I think we kind of hamstrung ourselves a little bit, which is whatever, we're moving forward on it. But as far as the motion that's been made and seconded, if this were anything else, I would say you have my support, Madam Mayor, but I just don't feel comfortable giving a vote something that's of this magnitude that we've already moved forward on with all of the engagement and discussion that we've already had.
Thank you. Councilwoman Lurch.
I hear what Councilmember Campos is saying, and I would I agree with what you're saying. I think I don't know which process to describe it as, but the one that gives us the simple majority to bring it back and give public notice to do it in that matter, if that is the intent of Mayor, so that at least it happens with enough transparency to the public. I would rather have that, because what I'm sensing is that you didn't feel like you had the clarity that you needed for that vote. And I will agree with the comments that were made. 7 motions were a lot. And yes, we did not give the clarity of the direction needed to come from us. So whatever, that was what it was. So I guess what I'm saying is I support you, Mayor, if you need to rescind your vote, but I think we do it with the public notice process. And so I don't know which step that is, but I think legal counsel could probably help us with that.
Mayor Pro Tem Maloney, Councilman Brown, oh.
I'm good.
So I guess my comment is that because all we did was pass a resolution directing staff, we did not approve an ordinance, we did not modify the PMC. When whatever the staff we've directed staff to do, if we have 2 council members who believe that they needed more information and may have made a different decision if they'd understood better what was in front of us, I would hate for that to come out when the ordinance comes in front of us and then we reject the ordinance after the work has been done and then we go back to the drawing board or modify it and have to now modify the ordinance on the fly and if in the same level of confusion we've been in the past. I am comfortable with either direction if we have 2 council members that would obviously flip the direction that decision would have been made. Whether we rescind the resolution tonight or whether we consider it, I just don't want to get a staff in a position where they've done all the work, bringing forward an ordinance, and now we throw that back in staff's face and say, oh, just kidding. And I don't mean to be derogatory to anyone on council. I apologize if that came across more flippantly. It's late and I'm tired. But I would hate for us to wait longer, get more work done, and then make the same decision, and then reverse the decision and change what we're planning on doing. So however we can, if we have 2 council members that want to move forward, I'm not particular whether we rescind the resolution, we would consider it in the future. I have no position on that, but I just don't want to waste more of staff's time. However, that we need to get from here to there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Milne.
Well, some very good arguments. I would actually agree with Compost. I mean, we did make a vote, and I don't know. I mean, again, I honestly do understand where Councilman Maloney is coming from. I mean, it was a difficult vote. I thought we had way more than enough time. I thought we got all information, heard, did all the different sessions. I can't imagine how we didn't understand what we were voting for, or the 7. I thought we want the city staff to give us a lot of options. I understood what all 7 were. I agree. Councilman Campos really said it eloquently that, we don't want any changing last second. So I think we should just move forward and see how it all goes. I mean, again, it just seems like we're always wasting a lot of city staff on this, and it seems like we've gone through it a ton, but that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And just before I hand it over, I do want to reiterate, my intention is not to throw hard work back and say, well, redo. My intention is to make sure that we're doing it right. And going back to the number of options, historically, I don't know that I've seen more than 3, possibly 4 options being brought forward. And so I do hear you. I understand what you're saying, Councilman Campos. I appreciate that input. Mayor Pro Tem Maloney as well. I definitely don't want to add more work. And Mr. Ferguson, I'm going to defer back to you. What would be the simplest way, and taking into consideration that Mayor Pro Tem Maloney said this is a resolution. At that point, we can bring it back, have further discussion, and make an amendment possibly. What would be the easiest, fastest, most?
So if you approve if the motion to rescind, which is on the floor right now, if that's approved, then we go back to 0. And from what I'm hearing, the council did not appreciate the number of options. So at this point, in terms of what we came back with the different combinations, at this point, quite frankly, the only thing I would be comfortable coming back with is a blank motion and have a discussion, and then somebody can make a motion to fill in the blanks. But at this point, there really is three factors. There's, in terms of combinations, there's the two different zones, both commercial and industrial, and then there's the conditional use aspect of it. So those are really the three only factors, and that's why you ended up with 7 motions.
So rather than coming back with a blank slate, what would be the process to bring back 3 of those options, say?
Well, if the motion to rescind was to pass now, then somebody could make a motion somebody could make a motion to bring back the item on the agenda. And obviously, you don't need to make the fact that it only has 3 options. You don't need to make that part of the motion. That's something that we can clearly take direction from without making that part of the motion. But just you would want to make a motion and then have that pass by a simple majority to have the city manager place it on the future agenda.
I have more questions, but I'll defer to first Councilman Serrano and then Councilman Campos.
Thank you. I think we've made what's been a very convoluted and complex process probably exponentially more convoluted and complex tonight. Really, honestly, in my opinion, from this position, the only people that are losing are the public. We've engaged them in listening sessions. We deferred from, or we missed by one day, an opportunity to put it out to a ballot measure to seek full input, not selected, people that decide to show up on Tuesday night because we were concerned that some people wouldn't show up on a Monday night. In the 5 years I've been on council, this is the first time we've ever had a situation where we've decided we had to backtrack, and I think it's just disappointing, to be honest. Yes, there were 7 options, and maybe we didn't all understand them, and so be it. But I'm disappointed. That's all I can say.
Councilman Campos.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Maloney. That's some good insight. What I'm picking up is that there's a concern that if we bring this back, that if somebody were to change their vote now, there's a likely indication that they would change their vote on the proposed ordinance, which would then set staff back. Boy, I don't like this. This is muddy waters. I'll echo Councilman Serrano. I just feel like this is not how we should conduct ourselves as council. But if, again, we have a motion on the floor in a second, let's do this.
Mr. Ferguson.
If discussion's concluded, then now it's roll call.
Okay.
And the original motion is to rescind the vote. A yay means
Yay means you're rescinding.
rescind it, and a nay
Means it fails and it stays in place.
Stays in place, and again, it would be bringing back discussion when that resolution
No,
comes
not
up.
necessarily. That's separate action. So-
Not necessarily. That would be the next motion.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, I'm getting slow right now, so I apologize. I'm going to try to restate what Councilmember Serrano said, and hopefully I'll get the same nods that he just got. So if we vote yes or yay in favor of the motion by the mayor, in this case, resolution number 4303, which is where we directed staff to go and draft us up an ordinance, we would rescind that and have a blank slate as to figure out what we're going to do next. But we would undo, we would roll back resolution 4303, and that would be the action taken. Then, whether that passes or fails, we will have options in front of us to either apparently there'll be other options as to what proper notice or what we do if once we rescinded it to try to provide better direction to staff.
That's correct.
Okay.
So it's the motion on the floor is a motion to rescind resolution 4303.
Thank you. I just want to be absolutely clear after the lack of clarity we've had along the way. Thank you.
It sounds like discussion has concluded. There's a motion, there's a second. Can we get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Roach,
Yes.
Councilmember Serrano,
No.
Councilmember Campos,
Yay.
Councilmember Brown,
Okay, the yay is what again?
So the,
I'm so done with this topic. The yay
the
is
yay is to rescind the
Okay.
motion that was previously passed, so to undo the motion that was previously passed, 4303. So then there would be no, that resolution would not be in effect.
Yay allows, nay allows more discussion?
Now, let's be clear. Okay, that's not the question on the floor about whether it allows discussion or not. The question on the floor is there's a motion to rescind resolution 4303. Yay means that you're rescinding it. Nay means you are not, and it stays in place. That's it.
Nay.
Councilmember Milne,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Maloney,
Yay.
and Mayor Barajas.
Yes.
That's a 4-3 vote, so
Okay,
not
so-
2/3.
So the motion fails because it required a 2/3 majority vote. So that motion fails. So it remains, resolution 4303 remains in effect. And if someone wants to make a motion to bring back resolution 4303, you can do that with a simple majority. That will come back on the agenda as noticed, and then would only require a 4-3 simple majority to rescind.
I move to bring back resolution number 4303, consideration for retail sale of cannabis, to a future city council meeting. There's
For potential rescission.
or potential rescission.
Rescission, yep.
There's a motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Maloney. Roll call vote, or all those in favor?
Please roll call.
Roll call vote.
All right, Councilmember Milne,
No.
Councilmember Roach,
Yes.
Councilmember Serrano,
Absolutely not.
Councilmember Campos,
Yes.
Councilmember Brown,
For discussion. Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Maloney,
Yes.
Mayor Barajas,
Yes.
and that passes.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I appreciate the entertainment of more clarity on this. Thank you again for all the hard work on that. No more discussion on that one in particular. With that, we move on to item 13. We had an executive session. We are moving that to our next meeting. With that, it is 9:57, and this meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you, everyone.